Welcome back to Peak Performance. With me is Bryan Fetzer, the president of Iron Faith Nutrition and the president of PsyOptimal Sports. So we just recently heard about how nutrition impacts health and some of the key products that they offer at Iron Faith Nutrition. Now we're going to dive into mental toughness and the importance of mental toughness for peak performing athletes. So let's start there, Bryan. How important is mental toughness to athletic performance for on-field performance and in the classroom or at home performance?
I would say the word optimization is probably the best because mental toughness is one of those terms that a lot of time gets misconstrued. It says, well, you're not mentally tough, so you're not going to be able to perform well. Whereas you're trying to really make the most out of your abilities and to optimize what you've been given. And we started Iron Faith Nutrition, to try to help people get healthy from a intake standpoint. And then PsyOptimal Sports came about a year and a half ago, and it's Dr. Wayne Chappell, who is an MBA sports psychologist, and Rich Hemphill, who is our CEO. Has been in the tech world for a long time. We kind of came up with PsyOptimal based on Dr. Chappell's work in the military field, and now he's brought it into the NBA and professional sports, and really to help give assessments to individuals to help them figure out where they need to spend their time and their attention on creating cohesion, on seeing how an individual can perform better, and then overall wellness of an individual.
Mental optimization is very important. I was somebody that, I played baseball and, I was a pitcher. So, everyone loved it when, you were in that flow zone and everything was going according to plan and you brought your A game. But, when there were those little hurdles or those little mental obstacles, you give up a home run, you give up a double, you have bases loaded and you feel all of that pressure. You truthfully have to dig deep and, figure out how you can push through and perform at your very best. So do you have any stories or any background information on how PsyOptimal Sports and the offerings that you have with PsyOptimal Sports can help athletes to maintain their flow zone?
Well, I mean, I was a coach at a pretty high level for 23 years, and been around professional and college athletics really my entire life. And I'd be the first one to admit I did not do a very good job as a coach, helping my athletes perform at an optimal level. I was tough. I was very old school in nature, didn't really understand as much as I do now. And man, I could kick myself for not having, tools or opportunities to understand a student athlete or an athlete better from the start. And that's kind of the whole thought process behind PsyOptimal Sports is we work with teams on the professional level, on the collegiate level, and even starting to work on the high school level. And we have some major clubs that we work with on the youth level, but we also work with corporations and ministries to help provide tools to them so they had a better understanding. If you walk in the first day that you're coaching somebody, and I say coaching, that could be no different than managing them from a business perspective. If you have a better understanding of how that individual functions, you're going to be able to help them optimize their performance, right from the start. As opposed to, I always said that, the first year I ever coached anybody, I was really throwing things at the wall, hoping something stuck, because you thought you knew them, but you really didn't know them once they got into a competitive environment, or when certain buttons get pushed. You're a student athlete, you're taking exams, you're going to class. What's that going to be like when you get put in a championship situation and you're going to have to perform at a very high level, even higher than you performed when you were in high school? And then you get to that point, what buttons do I need to push to help you along the way? And I think that takes time. And usually by that third or, second, third, fourth year, you were able to understand. You had a very good understanding of that person. Well, think about you're an employer and you just hire some clients or hire some employees, and you're telling them to work with your clients, but you don't really know how they work. Are they individuals that lack trust? Are they individuals that lack self-esteem? How are you going to be able to help them out if you don't understand how they are? You've got to get to that point where that person is and help them out. And one of our assessments is about tactics, and you get a better understanding of an individual through an assessment. And as opposed to going and sitting down with a sports psychologist or a psychologist or a counselor, if you have a company of 400 people, how is that going to be possible? To be able to
Absolutely.
one of them to a counselor, each one of them. So being able to do assessments, and there's a lot of assessments out there. I mean, there's a ton of them out there that function differently, but it's really giving yourself a tool. And I think as a coach or as an employer or as a manager, if you can give yourself a tool to help you be more successful, why would you want to do that?
Yeah, so basically what I'm hearing is as you're introducing PsyOptimal Sports is the importance of communication and the importance of understanding. So if you could actually elaborate a little bit more on how this bridges communication barriers, how would PsyOptimal Sports do that for you as a coach?
Well, it gives you an understanding of an individual up front. That's the biggest part. One of our, like I said, one of ours is called Tactics, and that's basically a whole kind of 150 plus question, 18 different areas of understanding of how you are and who you are, and where we can kind of capitalize on the things that you do the best and work on the things that you're not quite the best at. So you go from that, but we also have, culture is such a huge part of any company, any business. I think it's overused, but I also think it's not understood as well as it could be. When somebody starts, it's a great buzzword, right, Ryan?
Yeah.
Our culture is great. What does that mean? What is your culture? I mean, how are you determining what your culture is, and how are you objectively, ranking your culture? How do you know that? Well, a lot of times it's going to come from feedback. And one of our assessments, we call it ACE plus cohesion: attitude, confidence, energy, plus a cohesive state of a team, and the cohesion with the management or your coach or your supervisor, or your general, whoever it might be, whatever field you might be in. But as you kind of look at your attitude and see where that's tracking, where your confidence is tracking, where your energy is tracking, and then how cohesive are you within a group? And you take an assessment, and a lot of times, I mean, coming from a coach standpoint, you think about it this way: we're winning in a business, we're making money, we're having success. Does that really mean you're functioning at the most optimal level? No. You could be, struggling incredibly, but you just are, much better than everybody else you're competing against from an athletic standpoint. Or you might have a niche area that you're just, you have your demographic and you're hitting it, but you could be much better and function much better as an organization if you knew that, things weren't so cohesive. Maybe that's a tough conversation to have, right, Ryan?
Absolutely.
I mean, who wants to go to their employer and say, "Hey, I don't like you," or "I don't like how you're managing"? Well, it's probably not going to go over real well, right? I mean, there's pushback. So, if you had something that was in an aggregate and it was, confidential, and all you got to see as a lead, as a lead professional, as a coach, as an executive, that, hey, this is how my organization feels about me. How can I go about improving and making the organization better? And again, communication, learning, understanding, being a little more, there's transactional and there's transformational leadership. Two very different parts. A lot of times, I know as a young coach, I was very transactional. Hey, I want you to perform better, period. I want you to win. I want you to do whatever it might be. I want you to get that sale. Whereas transformational is you're leading from the heart. You're leading from inside, and you're trying to really help that individual become a better person. And the results will come. But you're also helping them transform and become better at themselves. Be the best.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you mentioned the two different assessments that you have. You had the tactics and then you had the ACE. Is that correct? So are there any other assessment tools that you currently use to build that cohesion? Because you're absolutely correct. Having individual performance highlighted is very important so that you know the individuals that compose the larger team and the teams working towards that mission. Are there any other services or assessments that you currently have that help a team move towards their end goal?
We have another one that's a wellness, a traditional wellness, takes about 90 seconds to do, and it's more on the mental health standpoint. We have that one. That's another one that a lot of companies and a lot of teams use to keep as a regular checkup on somebody's state of where they're at. But one of the things we also try to do is provide content, provide clips. We're in a generation now where everybody's on this thing, and they want something that's 15 seconds, 30 seconds. They want something information now. So producing some content, we produce those for our teams and our organizations that we work with, because, hey, you got to go where somebody's at. And if somebody's going to be online, if somebody's going to be responsive to what's on Instagram or TikTok or one of those platforms, the social media platforms that we never had when I was a kid, it was a bulletin board, right?
Yeah.
You're a little bit younger than me, but you'd put that on the bulletin board in the locker room. And that's kind of where you would, get your motivation, or you would, watch some, you read a magazine. Or now it's online. So we put a lot of things online as well.
We are all computer controlled humans at this point, and I think one of the things that your companies are trying to accomplish, as well as some of the goals that my company is trying to accomplish, is bring the human back to the forefront so that we can all peak perform as humans. So, Bryan, thank you so much for your time today. We're going to go to a quick commercial break, and we'll be back right after this.